If we want to really understand the future, I believe it's important just to look at the past. So lucky for you, I packed my handy-dandy time machine, so we just all climbed into it. I set the dial for 1905, New York City. Any New Yorkers in the crowd? That sounded kind of quiet. You must be from upstate. Fast forward to present day. The smart folks at McKinsey say we're going to experience more technological progress in the next decade than we have in the past 100 years. Think about what you've been reading, seeing, hearing just since the fall of 2022 when it comes to AI alone. So I believe we're on the beginning of a new cycle, and it's going to play out over time, but I believe when we look at the past, we're going to see a repeat of that as we look forward. So if you believe what I'm saying, it's probably important that we all know a little bit about this thing called AI. So what are the basics? It's amazing to me, by the way, as someone who does a lot of work in AI around the world in health and medicine, how many times I can be having a conversation with people about AI, get to the end of it, and kind of find out we're really talking about different things. I mean, if all of a sudden I broke you up and I said, turn to the people next to you and discuss your definition of AI, how much variance would be in this hall? So I'm going to give you a few things to think about. I don't understand why people make AI out to be so complicated. I mean, there's lots of cool things that are kind of complex, but AI is simply IT systems that sense, comprehend, act, and learn. Intelligence demonstrated by software with the ability to depict or mimic human brain functions. I'm going to keep going back to mimic, not replace. So at this point, the real question is, well, what do you need to do to leverage AI in your own practice or business? It's amazing to me in my ability to work with people who are brilliant. They've gone to medical school, they've got advanced degrees like you, they've spun up very successful practices, and somehow when I mention AI, they do this. It's like, it's not that hard. So I've had the privilege of working on analytic and AI projects around the world for probably 15 years. There are a lot of things I can tell you for what not to do. But there are a few things that when I look at successful organizations and people, there are a couple things that if you understand this and you do this, I guarantee you will have success. Not only will you have success, but here are three things that if you understand and do, I believe will give you AI superpowers. Where do optometrists stand when it comes to those kind of changes? Because it seems to me that, as people come to you for the eye exams and you're doing retinal imaging, it may be you become an even more important referral source to other sort of specialties based on just what's happening with retinal scans and AI. Here's the other thing. It's not just about what AI can do, it's how it's done. So maybe you saw this, but last month, FDA for the first time cleared a fully autonomous AI algorithm that predicts diabetic retinopathy from any handheld camera. I remember a dozen years ago, what it took to run some AI against retinal image. And all of a sudden, we've got the FDA approving this thing that can do diabetic retinopathy imaging and diagnosis from a handheld camera. So as I look at that, and again, I'll extrapolate a little farther. We'll see if it happens. But when you look at what's happening, I believe we already live in a world that I call the planet of the apps. So are we going to reach a point where we're going to see apps that allow consumers to at least start that process of screening for things like diabetic retinopathy, glaucoma, anything else? And if this is where we're going, by the way, when you look at the digital device interactions per capita per day, I was surprised when I saw this data. By 2025, the average per capita interaction per day, almost 5,000. So if this is happening and there's going to be this convergence, and I'm an optometrist, is that a threat? Or when I think about it, it's like, well, what if I could catch that wave of what's happening? What if I can really be right there and actually leverage that as part of my practice, whether it's the clinical mission or the business goals? And these are all the things that we get to think about.